Welcome to Retiring Well, where it's our job to help you enjoy financial security in any economy. I'm your host, Michael Reese, and we have a very interesting show this week. We are going to answer the question, can you really get 5 to 10% on guaranteed accounts, or is that just too good to be true? We're going to have a very surprising answer for you, I think. And now it's time to meet our co-host and your local retirement planning specialists.
And in Birmingham, Alabama, this is Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor and your retirement planning specialist, Tad Hill.
Retiring Well with Michael Reese, providing financial security in any economy. Today is the day you can take control of your financial future and eliminate worrying about your money forever. Retiring Well with Michael Reese, featuring Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor Tad Hill, founder of Freedom Financial Group in Birmingham.
So, can you really earn 5 to 10% with safety? Can that really be done? Well, the answer might surprise you. The answer actually is yes. But the answer is also no. Maybe a better way to say it would be yes, but. So let's go ahead and let's look at some different options, and you'll learn a little bit more about what I'm talking about here. I've got my little handy dandy flip chart here. You know I love this thing. And you see some letters up here, CD, TB, FA. Well, what in the world do those letters stand for? Well, CD, that's a certificate of deposit. You can go to a bank and you can put money in a certificate of deposit, a CD, for 6 months, for 1 year, for 5 years, different time frames. TB, that stands for Treasury bonds. Now that's the government, our federal government issues Treasury bonds, where basically you're giving them money for a period of time, and in return they're paying you interest. The last one, FA, stands for fixed annuity. Insurance companies offer safe accounts, and they call them fixed annuities. You can give your money to an insurance company, and in return they'll pay you interest. So each of these, give your money to a bank, they pay you interest. Give your money to the government, they pay you interest. Give your money to an insurance company, they pay you interest. All three of them, your money is insured up to certain limits, and you know this show airs in so many different states now that I don't want to get into specifically what the limits are in your individual state. Just know that it's all insured by somebody. In any event, I've gone out there, I've done a little research to find out, at current interest rates today, what are these things paying? Well, here's what I learned. Right now, CDs, they're paying about 1.24%. Now, that's a 5-year CD, according to Bankrate.com. I went to Yahoo Finance, and I found out that 10-year Treasury bonds, they're paying 1.94%. And then finally, 10-year fixed annuities, 2% is a pretty typical number. All right, so there you go. Those are the three rates. So far, I don't think we're seeing 5 to 10%. I mean, I'm not seeing it. Are you? Well, no. There is a piece of the puzzle, though, that I have not shared with you. And that is that some fixed annuities from insurance companies offer a pretty sizable bonus when you begin. There are insurance companies out there, now again, this depends on the state you're in and the different providers, that might offer anywhere from 5 to 10% bonus up front. And so what happens is you put your money there, right away you're getting 5 to 10% of your money, bang, right then, right there. Now, did you earn 5 to 10%? Yes, you did. But did you earn it every year? No, you didn't. You just got it in the first year only. Nevertheless, over a 10-year period, I ran the math here to find out what would this all amount to. What if you started with $100,000 and you put it in there and let it go for 10 years, what would you have? CDs, you would have about $113,000. Treasury bonds, about $121,000. These fixed annuities, about $132,000, assuming an 8% bonus. Well, what do you want? 113, 121, 132. As my children would tell me, Dad, duh. Well, here's the deal. This is kind of just general stuff because I don't know what the rules are of the states you're in. What I'm going to do now is I want to turn the show over to our co-hosts where they could talk about what types of bonus annuities are available where you live and when and where they are best used.
And now, featuring Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor Tad Hill.
Well, Mike, the topic is where can we get fixed interest that will help us get as much yield as possible? We talked about CDs, you talked about treasury bonds and fixed annuities. Now, all of these are interest rate sensitive, so interest rates are at historical lows, and that means that our yield is going to be low. So on CDs, the yield's the lowest of the three. The one thing about CDs, we don't have to worry about price fluctuation. So you're going to get your interest and you're going to get your principal back. With a 10-year treasury, if you're going to hold it for the whole 10 years, then you don't have to worry about interest rate risk. But if you end up holding it for less time than that, and between now and then interest rates rise, the prices of treasury bonds are going to drop during that period of time. Now they will come back to the beginning value at maturity. And I know we've analyzed bonds and explained bonds on the show in the past. This isn't really that discussion. So if you've got questions about how bonds work, give us a call. I'm happy to help you. Fixed annuities with a bonus. Now, here in Alabama, we can get products with a bonus, like you said, Mike, anywhere from 5 to 10%. If we're going to use the fixed account in there, we can get maybe somewhere between 1.5 and 2. If we're going to use annuities for any type of vehicle that we want to put our money in, we need to understand that annuities come with surrender charges. So normally we can get 10% out a year without any kind of surrender penalty. But if we're going to need more than that, or we think there's even a chance we're going to need more than that, we don't want to structure those dollars where they're less liquid if we're going to need them for emergencies and that sort of thing. So typically a good plan is going to have dollars in a lot of different places. We have a big fat emergency bucket with nothing but cash. We've got some market-based investments that are conservatively invested, designed to generate interest and dividends. And if we're using something like a fixed annuity, typically what we're trying to do there is get some money where we know it won't go backwards if the market crashes, but that we can generate a pension-like income at some point in the future. So that's one of the uses that we use fixed annuities for if we end up putting one in a portfolio. Now, a couple other things you have to be very aware of. Annuities come from insurance companies, so you have to be very educated on who the insurance company is, how long they've been around, what their rating is, what their surplus is. Surplus is one of the ways that insurance companies get rated. It's how much they've got in reserve for their dollars of obligation. So investments, insurance products like annuities, all of these things are tools. I don't think of them as good or bad. I don't think of cash or CDs or treasury bonds or stocks or annuities as good or bad. I think of them as designed to do certain things, and they've got pros and they've got cons. So stocks have pros and cons. Bonds have pros and cons. Annuities have pros and cons. Cash has pros and cons. So we have to think through what's the best way to structure your portfolio and your retirement plan. So these are some of the things to think through. We talked last week about income planning. Now this is a little bit of the investment planning piece where we're talking about the different characteristics of different vehicles that we can use to put our money in. If you're curious to understand what is the best structure for you, how much should you have in your emergency bucket? If we're going to use a market-based account and you want to generate interest and dividends, what's a reasonable amount of interest and dividends to expect? If we want to protect some of our money in a fixed product like an insurance company's annuity, what are the benefits around that? What are the drawbacks? Give the number on the screen a call. I'll sit down with you and help you understand the answers to these questions.
Once again, that was terrific information. And folks, call the number on the screen. I mean, this is your opportunity to get your financial house in order. Don't let it slip through your fingers. Call the number, sit down. I'm sure you'd be glad you did. Now don't go away. Coming up is our question of the week.
Let's talk about ways to protect your principal that have the potential to earn a decent return. Many of you want your money to be protected. That makes a lot of sense in today's unsettled economy. But it's difficult these days to find a place that pays you a reasonable amount of interest. It's frustrating. That's where we come in.
Ways to protect your principal with the potential to earn a decent return are available if you know where to look. We evaluate them every day.
It's one more reason that now more than ever, you need to talk to a retirement planning specialist. Why not call the number on your screen right now? We'd love to talk to you about protecting your retirement.
Let's talk about retirement income. Studies show that a large number of retirees are worried about running out of money. Broken promises from banks, Wall Street, and the folks in Washington, D.C. may have you worried about your own retirement security.
Having a predictable income stream is a key ingredient to protecting your retirement. One potential way to do that is to have your income stream based on math and not markets.
It's one more reason that now, more than ever, you need to talk to a retirement planning specialist. Why not call the number on your screen right now? We'd love to talk to you about protecting your retirement.
Welcome back. It's time for our question of the week. This week's question comes from Robert in Grand Ledge, Michigan. Robert says, I moved jobs and I still have money in my old 401k. My new company is making me wait 1 year before I join their 401k. That's pretty common. Should I just leave the money in my old plan, or do I have other options? Now, Tad, I know you get questions like this. Can you help Robert out?
Well, Robert, this is a question that faces everybody at some point. You leave your job, what should you do with your 401k? Or you are retired, what should you do with your 401k? The most important thing is to make sure that we are handling it in a way that isn't going to create income taxes. So a lot of folks think they have to leave the money in their 401k. They don't. They can roll it to their new employer, but in this case you've got to wait for a year, or you can roll it to an IRA. Now, you can do a rollover or a direct transfer. A rollover is when they send you a check and then you roll it over into the IRA. That has to be done within 60 days, so you have to be very careful or it triggers taxes. Now, I always tell people, don't even mess with that. Just do a direct transfer, custodian to custodian. Our custodian is Fidelity Investments. So if we're rolling somebody's 401k from their job, maybe it's at Merrill Lynch or Wells Fargo, or sometimes it's at Fidelity, we're moving it over to Fidelity, we do a direct transfer. So the money never actually gets in your hands, Robert, that way that there is never any confusion and you know that the money isn't going to get taxed as income because we're moving it from one tax-deferred vehicle to the other. Now, 401ks, a lot of people think they're not paying any money inside their 401ks or any fees, but really 401ks, the fees can be very, very high. So there's new laws out now where you should be able to see what the fees are, and so you've got some idea of what you're paying and whether there's a lower cost option. Typically, if you roll it to a self-directed IRA, you've got a lot more freedom in terms of how you can invest your money. If you're working with a professional like us, then we can help you with different strategies. So there are a lot of things to think through. Number one, make sure you don't do anything that's going to create taxes. Number two, understand what you're paying now in terms of fees. Number three, what are the different options? So it's good to analyze those things. And you know what? There are a lot of people out there facing these decisions. If you're watching today and you've got 401ks from several other old jobs, or you've just retired from a job you worked at for 40 years and you're deciding what to do, there are a lot of options, and that's one of the things that we help people do is sit down and look at, does it make sense to leave it there? Should you roll it over? There are again, a lot of laws and rules in place, so you need to understand what to think through. Give the number on the screen a call. We're happy to help you with that decision.
All right, folks, if you've watched the show for any length of time, you know that I'm a big proponent of finding out what your tax return would look like if one of you have passed away. In other words, what would a surviving spouse's tax return look like? Well, this week for Chalk Talk, my good friend and tax planning specialist Larry Flynn is going to share with you what happens when a married couple goes to a single surviving spouse.
Hi, Larry Flynn. Now, I know Mike has talked to you about this before, but you know, he's asked me to come on and really show you a real-life example of how this plays out, but how devastating the tax can be for a surviving spouse when they don't plan appropriately. Listen, I got Jack and Jill. They're older than age 65. They're receiving $60,000 in income. Half is coming from IRAs, half is coming from Social Security. Now, in this particular case, I'm showing you that the taxable amount of the Social Security is $6,850, okay? Now, by the time they take their standard deduction and personal exemptions, their taxable income ends up being only $14,450. The tax at that rate is $1,445, right? Now, let's say Jack or Jill pass away, and now they're filing single, right? Same income, $60,000, except now the Social Security is dropped, right? And now they've got to make up the income, maybe from the IRAs, and they do so. But in this particular case now, look at this. $17,000 of the Social Security, even though it's lower, is now being taxed, right? Same income, and then guess what? They only get one personal exemption, one standard deduction. Their taxable income now is $45,500. And look what the tax is on that, $7,305. Do you think that is a problem? Absolutely. Now, how do you fix it, right? Well, one thing they could have done is maybe Jack and Jill would have had life insurance on each other, right? And let's say now, when the one passes away, they use that life insurance to pay the tax on converting the IRA to a Roth IRA. All right? Now, same income. Now they're just pulling $40,000 from the Roth, Social Security. Look at this, zero tax. Now, you think that's where they want to be? This is not where they want to be. Now, listen. Do you know how many times as an accountant I've had anybody even ask me about this? I've never had anybody ask me. Do you think most advisors out there have anybody do this analysis for their clients? No. Now, I know Mike and I have done it several times with our clients, and I know his retirement planning specialists know about this. I would encourage you to call the number on the screen, give them a call, ask them, you know, what your scenario is and how they might be able to help. Anyway, I hope this has been a great value. Thank you very much.
Hi, Michael Reese here, and you know what I found is in that critical period, the 5 years before retirement, all the way to the 5 years after retirement, in that 10-year period, I find that over and over again, Americans are making mistakes with their financial planning that, quite frankly, are easily avoided, and it really almost breaks my heart because if you make little mistakes in this period of time, you can have huge consequences. So in order to help you not make those mistakes, I've put together a simple website with some free videos from me to you to help you be smart about your planning. The website is called 3mistakes.com. It's the number 3 spelled out, THREE, 3mistakes.com. Why don't you go there today? Hi Birmingham, Mike Reese here, and I have to tell you, I think you're very fortunate because one of the nation's top retirement planning experts is right there in your neck of the woods. It's my good friend Tad Hill. Tad and I, we get together with top financial advisors, gosh, 4 or 5 times a year anyway, just to brainstorm, figure out how we can better help you. Tad, why don't you take a moment and share with folks how you and Freedom Financial helps people with their retirement planning in Birmingham?
Well, Mike, as you know, we're chartered retirement planning counselors. So what we do is we sit down with you and help you put together a plan to secure your retirement so you have peace of mind and can accomplish all the goals that you want during your retirement years. And it's about understanding what questions to ask and putting that plan together. So for the folks that call the 800 number, I'm willing to set aside some time on my calendar to sit down and do exactly that. Review your situation and help you know what needs to happen to secure your retirement.
Folks, call that number now.
Well, Birmingham, it's time for this week's Retirement Rescue of the Week. And this week we're going to talk about Florence. Florence is a widow. She's in her early 60s. Her husband passed away a couple of years ago, and Florence had never dealt with the finances. That was always the job of her husband. She didn't really want to be involved in those decisions, and even though he had tried to get her to understand and participate in the meetings with their broker and that sort of thing, she really never had any desire to do that, so she didn't do it. But the truth of the matter is, guys, we're going to have to face things in retirement a lot of times that we didn't have to face before that. And one of the things that we have to face is our own mortality. So if you aren't understanding what's going on in your life financially, you're letting your spouse do it, and it's not always the husband that is the one doing it. Sometimes it's the wife and the husband doesn't want to be involved. But regardless, it's tough enough to deal with the loss of your life partner, your spouse, to compound that with the fear of feeling inadequate about the investments. It can really cause a lot of stress and anxiety. So when Florence came in, she said that her husband always had a good relationship with her broker, but she didn't really understand what was going on. He had her in a lot of different mutual funds, and when she asked what the plan was, she felt like there really wasn't a plan. More than anything, she just had some investments. She knew that they had lost a lot of money in 2008 and didn't want to go through that again. And when she asked her broker what the strategy was to avoid that, again, she felt like there wasn't a lot of detail there. So she came to see us. She had seen the television show, came in and sat down with us and wanted a retirement plan. She said, "Tad, I feel like what I've got now are some products, and what I need is a plan, and I need somebody that can explain all of this to me in a way that's understandable to me, because this is not an area of expertise." So we went through our retirement roadmap review, there's 5 areas of retirement planning: income planning, investment planning, tax planning, health care planning, and legacy planning. Now for Florence, she was very worried about not being a burden on her children, but she didn't have any long-term care. So she wanted to understand what were the ways that she could solve for that. She needed to be generating about 3.5% every year from her savings. And when we analyzed her portfolio, it was primarily invested in non-income generating investments. So the only way that she was going to get the income she needed is if the markets went up. So she was getting a little bit of income from it, but it was about 1.5% all told. So we were able to sit down with Florence, understand where she was, put a plan together that was designed, in this case, to use a market-based account that generated the amount of interest and dividends that she needed to pay the bills. Had a little bit of growth built in, but we knew that as long as the dividends and the interest payments kept coming, that was enough to pay the bills. We also were able to use certain products to make sure that she was taken care of from a long-term care perspective. And so now, rather than her having to depend on the markets going up every year, we've got a plan in place that's a lot more predictable than that and really reduces her risk. She said to me it's the first time she's ever felt like she really understood what was going on financially, and that it was a plan that she felt very secure about. So if you're like Florence and you want to understand how to protect your retirement and what are all the right decisions to make, give the number on the screen a call. I'll sit down with you and do our retirement roadmap review absolutely free with no charge. Just give the number on the screen a call. We'll sit down and do that for you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another reason why it's so important to sit down with a retirement planning specialist, someone who can truly help you look at all the facets of your retirement planning. Why don't you call the number on the screen now? You absolutely have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Okay, it's time to turn the page a little bit. For our last segment of the show, I want to share with you another IRA blow-up. This week's IRA blow-up comes to us from Minnesota. And by the way, I got this one from Ed Slott's newsletter. I want to throw a thank you out to Ed Slott and his team and all the work they do. If you don't know who he is, he's a really big IRA specialist, CPA kind of guy. Anyway, in his newsletter, he's telling the story of Patricia Ann Langston versus Wilson McShane Corporation. This was settled by the Minnesota Supreme Court March 27th of this year. Here's what happened. we have a guy and his wife, they're married and they get divorced. But this guy has a pension plan. They got divorced in 1993. And so what happens is Patricia Ann Langston, this is the gal that was married, she's the divorced spouse. In their divorce agreement, she gets something called a QDRO, which stands for a Qualified Domestic Relations Order. Basically what it said was she gets roughly half of his pension. But he was still working, and so he wasn't getting a pension yet. So she had this thing but didn't really do anything with it. Well, later on, he gets remarried, and then he starts taking his pension down the road. And then his wife, his new wife, when he dies, his new wife then gets the rest of the pension. Well, the first wife, Patricia Ann, says, whoa, slow down there. I get half of it. I've got this QDRO, this Qualified Domestic Relation Order. And what happened, she had it, but she never turned it in to the pension plan. So what happens is the court, this all goes to court because the pension plan said, no. Too late for that. You should turn that in way long ago. He's got a new wife now. We've already given the money to her. I mean, nothing we can do about it. She sues. They go to court. It goes to appeals. It ends up all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says the following: Patricia, you lose. It's too late. When you were divorced, you got that Qualified Domestic Relations Order. You should have sent it into the pension plan right then and there. You can't blame them for not knowing about it when you never gave it to them. So what happens? She ends up losing out on, in this case, a few $100,000, all because she didn't file the paperwork. What a tiny little mistake that led to such a big, nasty outcome for her. Now, there's nothing you can do at this point. What do we learn? If you're going through divorce, which I sure hope you're not, but if you are and you get one of these Qualified Domestic Relation Orders, file it right away, even if the benefits won't be coming to you for several years down the road. All right, that's our show this week. I think we had a really good show. Remember, you can get a pretty decent bonus on your safe money with some of those bonus annuities out there. Might be worth learning more about. Don't miss out on visiting with our local co-host and your local retirement planning specialists. I hope that you have a great weekend. See you again next week.